Delivery from Staples.
Staples guy. More storage bins? Great.
Yeah, and you saved a ton with Staples' 110% price match guarantee.
I am resolved to getting organized this year. Now everything is boxed up and put away.
Whoa. What was that?
Oh no, I boxed up Paul again.
Resolve to get organized and get 20% off select office supplies. Staples. Make more happen.
Applies to regular priced items only. Excludes ink and toner. Other restrictions may apply. Ends 1/14/17. Staples will match prices for items from retailers with online and retail stores and refund 10% of difference. See storestaples.com for details.
Do the Giants have their long-term solution at running back? What young wideout coming off an injury will be due for a big 2017? And can a young NFC North running back keep his starting job going into next season? Plus, the 2016 FFPC main event champions and $250,000 winners David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa return to the show to break down their big victory, their thoughts on Sammy Watkins, and how high they'll draft Tyreek Hill next season. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Bunches and bunches, punches is thrown into your frontlets. Oodles and noodles, bang bullets that suckers noodles. Last album brutal, prove that we fucking brutal. I'm talking crazy, half past the clock is cuckoo. You rappers doodle, baby, just say you boo-boo. I'm talking doodle,
broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
We run a brand with a structure's the number one commitment. It's all a joke between mom and dragon.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all you Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle himself, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, our thoughts on where Joe Mixon might be going in dynasty drafts this season, what Jaguars will bounce back this September, and our suggested playoff challenge lineups for all of you playing in the FFPC's world-famous playoff challenge this season. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there if you want to connect with us on Twitter. We are at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Our guests tonight are the 2016 FFPC main event champs, David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa. They will be joining us in about 13 minutes here on the show. You can follow them on Twitter. David is at 208-858-740. That's 208-858-740 on Twitter. Nelson Sousa is at _franchise12. You can give us a call tonight, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. The inbox is highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, for David, for Nelson, get them into that email box. Now is the time to send them. Our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer Bryce will get those questions to us later on in our fantasy feedback segment in the show coming up in the second half. Very exciting weekend for us here at the FFPC, Dave. We have the playoff challenge launching tomorrow. Can we get a count at how many teams are left before the 2,750 cap is reached?
25 teams left, Balky.
25 teams. We do a 75-minute show here. Would you like to put 5 on whether that will sell out or not? I have my inkling while it's on the air. I know it's going to sell out.
Yes, it's going to sell out while we are on there. I guarantee it.
Definitely will not sell out while we're on the air. I have 5 on that.
This is kind of an easy bet. Like, you just lured me into this.
Okay, then don't do it.
No, I'm doing it. It's going to... All right, I'm doing it. Yes. Easy money.
Spoiler alert. I totaled up the board after week 16.
Don't tell what it is.
I'm just going to say this. It behooves you to make this bet. Tonight. It behooves you to get a little bit more action on that board before season's end.
I'm lagging.
Yeah, I was as surprised as you were. So we got to remember to check that before the end of the show.
Must have been poor.
There's actually some ones in there that we made preseason that I shockingly hit on. There was a Jaguars running back wager that we made that I thought I was going to lose, and I ended up winning. We'll talk about all that in the wrap-up show coming up in a few weeks. I think this year it's scheduled for the first weekend of March or the last weekend of February.
Including me. So
except for me. I'm the only one who does.
You always know.
Yeah.
So it's the end of March?
It's the end of February or early March. I can't remember which.
All right.
It's somewhere around in there.
Cool.
So check out the Playoff Challenge, myffpc.com. Sign up for that before it is all sold out. $100,000 grand prize, $400,000 in prizes, $480,000 in prizes, pays down to 400th place. Am I right?
Yes, and also if you do happen to, if you're listening to the show tape delayed or whatever, or on the Fantasy Sports Network,
which you can hear us Saturday afternoon.
Feel free. There actually will have. Well, it might be getting late, but we'll have 20-man leagues as well.
Whoa! Don't give that away.
What?
We don't know if that's going to happen.
That's going to happen.
Well,
I'm putting that out there. I still think it's going to sell.
All right, so just put this out there. If the playoff challenge sells out,
21 now,
and you still, there you go. Wow, 4 teams just like that.
Woo-hoo!
And you still want to play in a playoff format, a high-stakes fantasy playoff format, we probably will have something for you. Check out, there'll be an FFPC email from me going out to you bright and early tomorrow because the playoffs kick off tomorrow, Dave. Very exciting time.
What games are tomorrow? Is it the
I believe it is Oakland, Houston, and then Detroit, Seattle.
All right, so one good team's playing tomorrow.
I believe that's how it is. So the other thing I should mention, FFPC-wise, we have a lot of Dynasty Orphan teams that are looking for a home. If you wanted to pick up one of those, you can do so at the FFPC message boards. Our very own Dave Gerzak has posted the entire roster and draft picks for each one, as well as the price that they are going for. Feel free to make your best offer as well. You never know when Dave will accept one of those.
If I'm in a good mood, I might.
Yes. So check that out at myffpc.com.
There's some good ones out there, actually, too. And there's some bad ones, but if you want a bad team, you can usually get those for a pretty good, pretty cheap price.
Right. Yeah, totally true. And again, I make this note in the email every week. I don't want to dwell on it, but these aren't necessarily dogs. I mean, a lot of guys, life gets in the way, and they have to sell some really good teams.
Yeah, we had a person who's in Virginia had to sell his team. Another guy who was having family type issue thing, and he won the league last year. And it's like those are teams that are still out there even.
Yeah.
Anyway,
check that out. You can also check out the High Stakes Lowdown season finale that was posted on rotoviz.com/podcast. Jared Gruget, fascinating tale with him. We had Brian Pakula on the previous week who took a team back from the dead. Jared Gruget had a 1-7 team in the FFPC main event, Dave. That 1-7 team finished 12th place overall.
Really?
1-7, got it to 12th place overall.
That is fascinating.
He tells the story there along with some of his strategy. He also talks about why he doesn't think it's a good idea to trust your gut, which I thought was also fascinating too. So check that out, rotoviz.com/podcast. Season 2, it has been renewed by RotoViz. That will come, the premiere coming up with that will be Thursday of Super Bowl week.
That's exciting. Is it on like IMDb that people are asking about?
No, it is not.
So you should get shown on IMDb page.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
So, how many episodes were there? I just want to, I'm trying to evaluate. Was this like an HBO type series?
It was right. I think it was around 13 or 14 for season 1. It was a little bit of abbreviated season because this coming season we'll be doing more off-season stuff on the show.
I think
a
short season's better. I think it's more.
It will not be a short season this year. There will be a ton of episodes. There will not be as many episodes as the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour.
Now you're moving into like Cheers and Friends territory.
Somewhere
like HBO caliber program.
Yeah, I think that quality is very similar as well. So rotoviz.com/podcast. Thank you to Roto World, RotoPass, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Rob Domofsky of ESPN.com reports that Randall Cobb was limited in practice again today. Cobb status probably going to be that he is playing on Sunday afternoon. He's officially listed as questionable. My question, Dave, is we move on. Well, I mean, you could talk about Cobb from a playoff challenge aspect. For me, he's off the board. I don't know how you could pick him as your Packer. But as we move forward to next season, Jordy Nelson led the NFL in touchdown catches. Devontae Adams tied for 5th in the NFL in touchdown catches, finished 3 yards short of 1,000 yards. Is Cobb the number 3 guy on this offense now? Is it the Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams show at receiver? Is Cobb going to be a guy that you'll be fading in drafts next season?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really like Cobb's skill set. I mean, he when they have no other receivers, he gets targeted. He has just not looked good for a long period of time now. Actually, I got a question, an email from Noah Bloom, one of our Dynasty players.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Asking me whether I preferred Cobb or Terrell Pryor, and I said Pryor.
Well, that's interesting because Pryor did have that really good Week 17 with Robert Griffin, and he obviously had that bad second half of the year with the finger issue, or at least the bad December with the finger issue. He'll get surgery on that. Much younger, definitely.
He's actually not that young, though.
Oh, because Cobb came into the league so young.
And Pryor is like 26, I think.
Yeah, that's true. So Pryor might actually be older than Cobb.
I don't think he's older, is he?
I don't know. He might be.
Let me check.
I remember, I don't know where I was reading this again, but I was reminded that Randall Cobb was actually the first player in the NFL to play in the NFL that was born in the 1990s, that decade. So he very well could still be younger than Pryor.
He actually is younger.
And Cobb's
Pryor's
younger.
27.
How about that?
And Cobb is 26.
I feel like Cobb played a little quarterback at Kentucky, too. I was going to say he's not a former quarterback, but I think he did play some quarterback there.
I wonder if I should revise my thinking, but I don't think I am.
No, listen. Unless you're Jared Gruget, you can go with your gut. John Harbaugh said that the Ravens hope Rashad Perriman can become the number one receiver in the 2017 season.
That's really funny.
Harbaugh says there are signs that Perriman can become a top receiver, but he still has some work to do before he gets there. This is according to Edward Lee from the Baltimore Sun.
Speaking of age, Rashad Perriman is 47.
Is he really?
Yeah.
How did he get younger? That's my question. Found the phone of you.
Look at that guy. I mean, he's got no hair on him.
Yeah, it's bad. Well, I mean, at least he shaved off what he had on his head. He does actually look younger, completely bald, than he did with the cornrows. Yeah. The Ravens do need a receiver because they are going to be replacing Steve the Icon Smith next season, a giant hole in that Baltimore passing game. If Perriman can be the guy who replaces him, Baltimore is going to be a pretty good team next year. Harbaugh says he loves Perriman's upside. He says he considers him a work in progress. This is his first year practicing, Harbaugh said. Didn't have training camp. There's a lot of upside there. Perriman, next year, sleeper?
You know, actually, I kind of think he might be. And the reason is that a lot of people have similar opinions to what I just spouted out. Like, you know, this guy hasn't done anything. But these are all valid points. I mean, he has not had training camp. They do have a huge hole. If they don't draft a receiver in the first 3 rounds, Perriman's a logical guy that you'd look to step up. And I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that moves all the way into the 4th or 5th round of drafts where people over-project him to break out.
Right.
I just don't see that happening with him. I mean, you saw that happen with, like, Funchess, for example, where Funchess was moving way up. Not like crazy, but he was going in the 7th round.
Right.
And I don't know, we had like 300-400 yards. I mean, even I was like, you know, I thought Funchess had a chance. I said, if you're going to throw a dart, give it a shot. But he absolutely did not hit that.
Right.
Or I think Perriman, if he's still going in the 10th, 11th round, then fine. Maybe 9th. Maybe he'll go to the 9th round, I would say.
Mike Wallace will be drafted ahead of Perriman next year, correct?
I don't think so.
Really?
I think Mike Wallace is kind of a known quantity. Well, you know, I don't know. I mean,
I think the fact that he's a known quantity makes him more valuable than Rashad Perriman, who God knows what you're getting with him.
No, I know that's true. I mean, he's a known quantity, but he wasn't all that great this year even.
So you're saying that the high-stakes players will actually value the upside and the unknown ceiling that Perriman has rather than sort of the known steady contribution that Mike Wallace offered this year.
Yeah, the variance is much larger with Perriman, so they'll take more of a high risk of a bust versus you kind of know you're not going to. Wallace is not going to be a top 15 receiver, not top 20 receiver, almost guaranteed. Maybe he'll be like wide receiver 34, 35 in that neighborhood, but Perriman has the chance.
I could also say this:
10% chance.
Barring injury, Mike Wallace will not be outside of the top 50 receivers next year. Which Perriman, I mean, even if he stays healthy, there's a chance that he could do. You know what I mean?
Easily.
So I mean, we're talking about the same thing, sort of. Perriman has the lower floor. He also has the much higher ceiling. That's a story that we'll be paying attention to this offseason. Also, be important.
Had 202 fantasy points through 17 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, like weeks 14, 15, 16, 17. Granted, this is with Icon. But I mean, even like 10, it's like, okay, 9, 12, 8, 11, 10, 8, 6, 7. That sucks.
Yeah, that's not great. Not the explosion that we're used to with
Wallace. I think
Wallace.
his good weeks were actually when Smith was gone. I mean, granted, that helps. I don't know.
Question from the chat room from Mint, Montana. Kobe Fleener in Dynasty, a sell or hold? Another year with Breeze help, or is he a bum? Can both of those? Can I say yes to both of those?
Sure.
Another year with Breeze will probably help, but he is still a bum. So I mean, for me, I would hold him in Dynasty right now because honestly, people are, even if you cut him, I don't know if they're picking him up. You could probably wait to see that. I mean, because there's going to be puff pieces that come out saying, Fleener he could never catch up last year with being on a new team and a new quarterback and a new system. This year he's had the whole off season. He's really, really comfy with Drew Brees. But this is what people will report, and then that's the point where you flip them.
If you can get anything for Fleener, take it.
Fourth round pick?
Third.
Third round, okay.
But I mean, okay, how many games did Fleener have over 14 fantasy points this year? The answer?
2.
2.
Yeah.
2 games that were over that. That's terrible. I mean,
and you know what sucks is
81 targets, touchdowns.
One of those games was the first Trump-Clinton debate, and so nobody remembers that game.
Exactly.
I remember I was watching that game at your place, and I was watching the football game on one screen, and then you had everybody else who was here watching the debate on the other screen. And I'm like, you guys are missing this fantastic game. I mean, the final score of that Atlanta-New Orleans game was like
it was a great game.
80-79 or something like. It was insane, and Fleener just blew up that.
Yeah, they scored 80 points, and Fleener only got 20 fantasy points.
We have David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa coming up in just a minute here. One thing I want to get to before then is to revisit a wager that we put $5 on much earlier in the season.
All right.
Jordan Renan of ESPN reports that the Giants are going to continue to use a committee backfield in the playoffs, but Paul Perkins has really been the guy who has stepped up in that committee. He's been playing better and more than Rashad Jennings over the past month. He probably continues that into the playoffs, even if Jennings gets mixed in there. We made that wager how high the Giants would take a running back next year. Are you feeling still okay that they take a running back in rounds 1 through 3?
I feel really good about it. Actually.
Really good?
Excellent.
Oh, interesting. I thought you might be back on that after Perkins had that 100-yard game.
I mean, if he got 20 carries, he's got a shot at a 100-yard game.
No, he already had a 100-yard game. I don't know if he had 20 carries.
I'm just saying, you give the guy the ball, he's going to have a good shot at a 100-yard game. He's still a non-pedigreed back. And if they really thought he was going to be something, he'd be getting most of the carries now. Well,
he is getting most of the carries now. That's the point. That's why I'm asking you.
They just said it's a committee-style
That's
backfield.
what they said, but the actual carries on the field has not been represented by what
to
what
be
is
doing
being
better
said.
than Rashad Jennings is not really that big of a deal.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I could be wrong, but I'm going to be right.
Adam Schefter of ESPN.
Deep running back field ball.
That is true. Adam Schefter of ESPN reports that Joe Mixon is going to enter the 2017 NFL Draft. 19 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns in the bowl game, the Sugar Bowl, against Auburn on Monday. He is actually hoping that his production on the field convinces an NFL team to take a shot on him. He runs hard. He profiles as the type of running back who plays in the NFL. He had the video of him striking a woman in a restaurant from 2014. That video became public, actually by his request to his lawyers that video becomes public. And I got to believe, Dave, this is the type of guy who may not get drafted in the NFL draft, but he's the exact type of guy. And, just purely from a fantasy standpoint, talking about this here, he's the type of guy that you take a chance on in the 4th round. And he becomes this.
The 4th round of Dynasty draft?
Yes.
He's not going to go in the 4th round of Dynasty draft.
You think he goes higher?
Absolutely.
A guy who is probably going to get undrafted.
If he's undrafted and gets signed by a team that has any type of running back need, he'll get. Keith Marshall was getting drafted in the 2nd round of rookie drafts last year. He was a 7th round pick.
Yeah, he was drafted.
A 7th round.
Yeah, Joe Mixon may not get drafted. And honestly, you have to.
That's possibly better.
You have to consider that he may not get signed either. I mean, there's a chance because of the video.
He'll get signed.
I don't know, man. We'll see. Last point.
This is the NFL. They talk about all these, about caring about people. They don't.
They don't actually care.
They don't care about the concussions. They don't care about the women, the domestic violence. I'm very cynical about the NFL. FFPC is a really high caliber organization, not like the NFL.
Just looking at the chat room here, Roger Goodell for life username just signed out. Just logged out of the chat room. This is interesting. I really want. I know we got to get to our guest, but I really want to bring this up because I think this is important. Paul Dehner Jr., who is the beat writer for the Cincinnati Bengals, said that he believes Jeremy Hill will likely serve as the backup running back and goal line specialist next year. The Bengals have Giovanni Bernard under contract for the next 4 years. He'll obviously compete with Jeremy Hill in that backfield. Giovanni Bernard has been much better when he's had that extra body back there rather than having him carry the load for an entire season. I got to believe that if this is the case, Cincinnati, because Giovanni Bernard is coming off that torn ACL, Cincinnati probably uses a round 2 to round 3 pick in a historic running back class. And Jeremy Hill's dynasty stock could not be lower right now.
I mean, you really think they're going to – so you have 3 people in the backfield now?
Yeah. Well, consider this, Dave. At the start of the year –
I would say there's no chance I'd put $5 on that.
Well, there's no real way to quantify how the carries are going to be divvied up. It's not like Giovanni Bernard –
running back in the first 3 rounds.
You want to do that?
Sure.
No, because – so you're saying that they –
Well, not.
And I'm saying that they will.
You just said
Yeah,
it.
all right.
All right, there you go.
All right, I got 5 on the Bengals taking a running back in the first 3 rounds.
I have 5 that they don't. We got to keep these guys on low.
Yeah, we will. Jeremy Hill, Dynasty, what are you doing? Holding him?
If I owned him anywhere, which I do not, I'd probably keep him. I don't know. He's probably not going to garner that much action. I'd throw him up for if I can get a rookie pick for him, first round pick, I would take it.
Okay. Well, what will garner a lot of action is our next 2 guests. We're going to bring them on right after this break. David Hubbard, Nelson Sousa, FFPC main event champions and $250,000 winners. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. Let us bring in our guests without further ado tonight. Both have been on the show before. They make their return in maybe their most successful fantasy football season ever. They cashed in all FFPC big paybacks, won numerous Football Guys Players Championship leagues, including a 12th place overall finish. And they are the 2016 FFPC main event champions, taking home $250,000 for their efforts. Please welcome back to the show Mr. David Hubbard and Mr. Nelson Sousa. Guys, congratulations.
Hey, boss.
All right, well, that was let's try that again. Guys, congratulations. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Balky.
Nelson, good to have you back, buddy.
Can I say that, Eric, you would make an excellent DJ for like a wedding, because the way you announce Dave and I would be like perfect for like a gay wedding.
Welcome to the groom and groom.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard about my side business, but yeah, it's something that's put many a hot meal on the table for my kids. Doing all these gay weddings, and I do lesbian weddings too. I don't discriminate between men and women.
That's nice, Balky.
Yeah, so.
But you do both.
Yeah, well, listen, if you guys ever get hitched and you're looking for a DJ, you let me know, because I will give you the Balkman discount for sure. Let's get into fantasy football here before I offend anybody else. Congrats on the main event title. Dave, let's start with you. You guys had a lot of potential titles on the line in Week 16, the final week of the fantasy season. Take us through that final weekend, Christmas weekend, as it were. What was it like watching those games with so much up for grabs?
It was fun, Balky. It was fun to sweat the main event for sure, and all the other leagues we had going. What made it even funner for me was my wife and them had fun sweating the Week 16. My wife and daughters follow along kind of. They wait till Week 16. None of them like football that much, but when they know I have a chance to win something big, they get real interested. So that was fun. And also one of my good friends, Doc, James Henson, had a big piece of my teams this year. So that was fun that he got rewarded for being involved in it this year. And I have a lot of fun with that. Just watching those teams finally get home, and I also couldn't wait to do the interview with you. I knew once we won, I'd get the opportunity to come back on your show, so that's always a blast. So,
listen,
to come back on this show, you said we are the 2016 FFPC main event winners. That's pretty exciting.
That is exciting.
It is the biggest honor, honestly.
Look, I mean, if you just want us to rip up the check, I mean, we can clearly do that. This is probably more rewarding to hang out on a Friday night with us. You just let us know. Nelson, let me ask you too. How do you let in your family into knowing what's on the line? Do you wait until Week 16 to say like, hey, we got a real good shot at this, or do you keep them in the dark, for that, or do you tell them early on? How do you treat it when so much is going on?
My oldest son definitely has gotten involved with fantasy, so he asks every week, how we're doing. My wife is very much, hey, talk to me Week 16. Tell me if I'm going to be able to buy anything for the house or something. Or, are we going to have to send some Christmas presents back? So that's kind of, that's kind of their routine, and then like Dave said, for me, it was more, but I didn't even care about the money or the main event win. I was just looking at it as, you know what, Dave and Balky have no choice but to put us on their Friday show now that we're main event winners. So that was the highlight for me.
It's funny you mentioned that, Nelson, because I was telling Balky, I'm like, I never want to have Sousa back on the show after you came on, and now here you are.
Well, I mean,
this is the worst.
Yeah,
this is the best because all the information that Nelson had given the listeners in the past obviously came to fruition for him this year. So people will definitely be tuning in for more great advice for 2017 tonight.
So let's ask Nelson a question. Looking back on this team specifically, by the way, hopefully you can remember. I mean, you guys have a couple teams. When did you realize that it had the potential to have a real good shot at being the grand prize winner?
I want to say that Dave and I both pretty much it was the same week. It was week 3 before Bell came back from suspension. I think that team put up like 200 that week without Bell, and that's kind of when we said, this team might have a shot with Bell back if it can put up 200 without him. So I think it was early on that we both said that we thought it had a shot.
And, obviously it was key getting those running backs, too, including Le'Veon Bell, Nelson. But there were a few picks in this league. For anybody who thinks that in order to win a national event like this, you have to hit on all 20 picks or almost all 20 picks, and none of them can be early. You can't have any busts early on. You guys actually swung and missed on a few picks in this league. Josh Gordon in the 5th didn't work out. Kristen Michael in the 9th worked out for a couple of weeks, but after that, he really fell off. And then the Will Fuller, Philip Dorsett combo in the 10th, 11th rounds kind of, got out to that hot start with Fuller, but really never materialized the rest of the year. How much grinding on the waiver wire did this team really require to get it to that elite status, to get it to the championship round, to really have a shot at being explosive enough to get the $250K?
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing is when I look back at that team and our waiver wire pickups that we made throughout the year, we actually hit on the right guys throughout the year. Our problem is we maybe grind too much where we're dropping that guy, a week or 2 weeks too early, to pick up the next guy, and then he emerges. So Dave and I, we looked back at that team after, we won in week 16, and we always like to look back at the draft board, look back at, free agent pickups, try to figure out, what we did wrong, what we can do better. And it was funny because, throughout the season, we actually had Terrell Pryor on that team at one point. We had, I believe it was J.J. Nelson. He kind of emerged towards the end. We had him on the team for a little bit. So we had some players that actually, at one point or another, did something during the year, and then, we just quickly dropped them. So, it did require some grinding, and then finally we came up with probably our best $2 pickup of our career in Tyreek Hill, and that kind of helped solidify that second wide receiver spot that, we were missing.
So, David, let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the draft a little bit. You had tweeted how you couldn't believe that David Johnson, I assume David Johnson, right, folks?
Yes, that is correct, Dave.
The only...
I don't know how many other people were.
It wasn't Chris Johnson?
Oh, you know what? My mistake. It was Keyshawn Johnson. Was the mid-first round pick for these guys. So, but I thought it was a bit of a stretch, taking Keyshawn in the first round, but it worked out for these guys.
Mike Bell and Bill McCoy.
Yep, Bill McCoy. No, the real McCoy. It was just shocking just how it worked out.
I'll tell to you guys in the first 3 rounds. So was this the best start you had in any of your leagues this past season?
As you both know, we drafted quite a few teams. And when we got to our main event teams, we had done a lot of prep through mock drafting for money is what I call it. A lot of guys mock. I mocked for money. But through the Football Guys Players Championship. And I think by doing all those teams, it gives me an added advantage to evaluate draft boards and make determinations on what I want to do in these main event drafts. And I always wanted to we got lucky with the picks we had. We had front-end picks this year, and we were David Johnson guys, so we were taking David Johnson. And Bell getting suspended was an added bonus. And we had this 5-hole team, and it was one of the last drafts we did this draft. And I said, I always want to see if Bell will fall down there and we could pair David Johnson with Bell because people are a little afraid of putting up $1,500 and then, hey, I got a guy that's out 3 weeks. Well, I think the opposite. If Bell come back to us. So in this draft, it fell just perfect. We took David Johnson at 5, and sure enough, when it came back to us, Bell was sitting there. So we took Bell, and we were big, shady guys anyway. And we really don't we really didn't like starting drafts with 3 running backs because it kind of pins you in the box a little bit. But when McCoy was there, I said, well, we'll just take McCoy too. And then in the 4th round, we were lucky that we called him Little Dez, Julian Edelman, was there to anchor the receiving core. And after that, I mean, I say all the time, the first 5 rounds of the draft define how good your team is going to be. People always say, I got to make these home run picks late in the draft. But no, you don't. If you get the first 5 rounds of the draft right, you're going to be competitive in any high-stakes league you do. If you get the first 5 rounds of your draft wrong, you're not going to be competitive, and it's going to be a bad year. So the first 4 or 5 rounds are very crucial in my eyes in determining whether you're going to be successful or not.
You know, Balky may have mentioned this earlier, but maybe I missed it. But this was a team you drafted live, right, guys?
No, we got to this one online, actually. Well,
this one's online, okay.
All our main events except one, I think, were done online. We did them all because we had so much going on in Vegas with big money leagues that we did most of our main events online. So we free up our time for the big paybacks and the other drafts we did out there.
That's right. That makes sense, actually. By the way, Balky, we're down to 11 teams.
No, I'm not worried.
This is going to be close.
This is really, honestly, we'll find out if the listeners really spite me, which I think they do. And they might sell out on the air just to grind my gears.
I'm going to run on a little bit tonight. I'm going to kind of keep the show going.
Dave, let me ask you. You talked about the Football Guys Players Championship drafts really prepping you for the higher stakes leagues in Vegas, and you mentioned the big paybacks, of course, High Society. You guys ran as well. How much? I mean, I know it helps, but clearly the FPC drafts. I mean, each one is so different. I mean, there is a certain amount of ADP aspect to it, but to me, it's just like you get 1 or 2 teams that kind of make these non-expected picks, and it really switches the top, 4, 5, 6 rounds of the draft sometimes. Did you feel like when you were doing those FPCs that you saw a lot of differentiation in a lot of them?
Yeah, I say every time. Every one of them are a different animal. It's not like any other format. But by doing a lot of those drafts, it definitely helps you piece together what you might want to do later in a draft by looking at so many draft boards. People try to get on Football Guys. Well, I don't have to do that. Obviously, I have my own draft boards, my own portfolio. So Nelson and I will print off a bunch of draft boards, and we're sick. I mean, I've never met another person like Nelson. It's like looking in the mirror. We'll be up at 2 in the morning trying to figure out, hey, what are we going to – I got to go to work at 6 o'clock. And we're saying, hey, let's bang out another free agent. That's probably a detriment to my health. My wife's been wanting me to cut back for a while, but once I say I will every year, but once Football Guys season gets here, I'm right there pounding away. So it's what I like to do, and luckily I got a partner like Nelson who's just like me. So we have a lot of success. I think a lot of our success is by the prep time we put in, and then also the in-season work we put in. I'm convinced there's very few people that work harder than it's like anything in life. The harder you work, the more you're going to be rewarded. I truly believe that. So,
I should also mention this too. Dave Hubbard likes to DM me on Twitter every now and then, and it'll be like positive, motivating tweets that he sees, and he sends it to me. And I don't know, maybe I just look like the type of guy that needs that motivation. But I'll tell you what, it brightens my day every time I get one. I'm like, yeah, oh, you've just received a direct message, and I look at it, I'm like, yes, that's totally right. Thank you. And it gets me jazzed. It's like a cup and a half of coffee.
Nice.
Reading those. So I certainly appreciate those.
Hang in there, Balky.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not like that. It's like aggressive. Like, go out and do this.
Change the world.
Don't hang in there. Make somebody else hang in there.
Hang them out there.
Yeah, hang them out there. Be the branch that they're hanging on. Stuff like that.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention I have a good luck charm at the FFPC, Chris Lambert, who goes out of her way to help me. There's nobody else in fantasy sports in any business that I don't care if it's daily, season long, that puts in the work Chris does, and she makes my involvement in fantasy football a lot easier. So I appreciate her a ton. And she has a little piece of the championship, too, just by all the help she's given me over the years.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this is she's really the FFPC's good luck charm, because she also puts in the most work of anybody in the company as well. And certainly we would not be here without her efforts. So I second everything you said about Chris Lambert there, Dave. Well, when we look at the championship round for this specific league, for the FFPC main event, do you remember, you and Nelson, Dave, did you guys remember having any tough lineup decisions with this team, or was this more of a, okay,
we're going to start these guys here. It's pretty cut and dry. We just got to hope none of them get hurt because we don't have a backup presenting itself that can step in there and really be the type of explosive player we need here to fill a spot. What about the lineup decisions? How did those go over these final 3 weeks?
Is that for me or Nelson?
That is for you, Dave.
Okay. Luckily for us, I talk to Nelson all the time about this. We second-guess ourselves a lot on lineups because we have so many we look at. And luckily with this team, there was really towards the end of the year from week 13 on, there was no decisions with this team. The lineup, it's a team that I like to say the lineup sets itself. We don't have to say, oh, man, what about this guy? What about this guy? You basically, those were the guys that were going to be in the lineup. So luckily with this particular team, the 3 running backs were never coming off the field. Julian Edelman was never coming off the field. And towards the end of the year, we had Bennett and Barrett, who you pretty much just locked them in too. So, and then Tyreek Hill emerged. And so that lineup set itself every week. And we didn't have 2 quarterbacks. We had Matt Stafford, and then we picked up Dan Orlovsky for $1. That way there's no messing that up. So the lineup pretty much set itself from week 12 on.
That's fantastic.
Well, we talked about that before. Sometimes it's better to not have that, that depth that you're racking your brain about later on.
Yeah, you prefer not to have it, actually.
Right?
As long as they're staying healthy. So, Nelson, in looking at the evolution of the team throughout the season, what do you think made it really special? And how do you try, you look at how great it did, and you're like, how are we going to replicate that? And what went right for that team? How are you going to do that in 2017?
Well, I think what made the team special was just the right from day one with the draft. I mean, when you take Johnson, Bell, and McCoy, and you look back at the end of the year, as far as their fantasy points, they were 3 of the top 5 fantasy scorers that were non-quarterbacks, right? So, it's kind of hard, to, you just need little pieces after that when you've got 3 of the top 5 scorers in fantasy. They were scoring, 20-plus consistently. So, I think that's what made the team special, no doubt about it, because, like you guys pointed out, that after the first 3 rounds, the draft wasn't all that, special really. And then as far as trying to mimic that, moving forward, Dave's more of the, contrarian type of drafter, whereas I like to, I'm more of a wide receiver heavy kind of guy. So that setup where, we went with the 3 backs, I know I wanted a David Johnson Bell team, just like Dave, was mentioning. But I think in the 3rd round, instead of McCoy, most of the time I'm probably taking the wide receiver there just because I'm more of a wide receiver guy. Whereas, Dave, decided, he wanted, let's just go McCoy. Let's go with the 3 backs. So I think, for next year it's more of, outside the box thinking, kind of just go with the flow and, build teams, differently and get out of my comfort level a little bit.
Well, I think, too, when you look at, because of the FFPC format, because you only have to start 2 wide receivers, that 3rd round is kind of left open to you. So you were able to take Shady McCoy and not feel that desperate or that bad about it. While if it was a different format where you're forced to start 3 wide receivers, I'm not saying ours is better than anybody else's.
I will. I'll say it.
At least not right.
It's the best.
Not the second. I'm not saying it fault you. But you almost couldn't have done that if you had to start 3 wide receivers. Is that right, Nelson?
Exactly. So, we obviously play, other formats too, and where it's more geared towards there's a premium put on wide receiver. So you really, in those formats, most years, you have to have, a couple of wide receivers you can hang your hat on, because, as the later round, as you get through the draft, into the 5th round, 6th round, your chances on hitting on wide receivers, the percentages go down. What was unique about this year was that wasn't the case. where you needed to draft, early wide receivers. It was the opposite. It was the running back year, where wide receivers had dominated for the last few years. David Johnson, Bell, Zeke, McCoy, those guys dominated. Even if you got later guys like, Gordon and Ajayi towards the end of the year, those guys, if you had those backs, you could kind of, piece together your wide receivers. I mean, look at towards the end of the year, you could have had Crabtree in the 6th round and Tyreek Hill as a free agent pickup, and, your team would have been, killer.
Indeed, it would have been, and your team was killer in this format for sure. We are talking with David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa, the 2016 FFPC main event champions and winners of $250,000. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk to them about 2017, what they're doing, and who they like better between Josh Doctson and Kevin White. You are listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. We are on the NFL playoffs eve. It kicks off tomorrow. Dave, do we have a count on how many playoff teams we have left to go in the FFPC playoff challenge here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour?
4.
Woo-hoo! 4 to go. I need everybody to hold off on purchasing those teams for just another 35 minutes. That would be great. It would save me $5. I'd certainly appreciate it. We're talking tonight. Of course, I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. Talking with Nelson Sousa, David Hubbard, the 2016 FFPC main event champions and winners of $250,000. Nelson, as we look forward to next year, which young receiver coming off an injury this year are you guys more likely to have on your teams? Is it going to be Josh Doctson for Washington, or is it going to be Kevin White in Chicago?
I probably feel pretty comfortably answering this for Dave and I, that it's Kevin White. I actually, when White came out of the draft, I actually told Dave that I think when their careers are done, I think Kevin White is actually going to be the better wide receiver than Cooper. They came out the same year, got drafted early in the 1st round. But White's the guy that, so far, he's dealt with some nagging injuries. But I think next year there's a good chance that there's going to be no Jeffrey there in Chicago. And I think White's got the total package to put it together. Doctson, he was good in college, but, I don't know. I could see Deshaun Jackson gone and him, coming in and filling in a role, but I've kind of got a bias towards White.
All right, Mr. Hubbard, let's talk about Sammy Watt, guy that I've traded and acquired and so on, numerous leagues.
Used to be your boy.
I still like him a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Whatever. Scheduled to have more and more and more foot surgery. Does this make him a value if he drops on draft boards, or do you think it's a red flag going forward that you should people should stay away from acquiring him?
Sammy Watkins cost me so much money this year that I'm going to probably stay away from him till I figure out to watch him for another year or so and see if his foot ever gets back to normal again. And now the Bills are going through some turmoil with their whole situation. So he's probably going to be a void. I'll be biased towards him next year because of we drafted him a lot in the other formats, and it didn't work out very well. So he's probably a void for me till he can show that he's 100% healthy.
Just to quickly follow up with that, that is that whole bias, it's like it's like a recency bias. I mean, I think it affects almost every fantasy player, people in general. It's just very tough when something like that happens. It's just tough to get away from. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true, Mr. Hubbard? I'm going to call you Mr. Hubbard now. Champion, Mr. Champ Hubbard.
Mr. Champion. Hey, I'm like Donald Trump, man. You're fired. I'll fire a dude in a hurry, man. If he doesn't do me right, I'll fire him, and it's hard to get back in my good graces. So, I probably owe him too much Sammy Watkins for a while.
He's gone.
And I wouldn't even say like it's a recency bias thing alone with Watkins. Dave, like you brought up, too, I mean, you have a new coach that is going to be coming in, probably bringing in his own offensive coordinator, which could be a whole new offense. And God knows what they're going to do with Tyrod Taylor, but it sounds like he will not be their starting quarterback next year. So you have a new quarterback coming in, throwing the ball to Sammy Watkins, and who knows how his foot's going to heal after this surgery in the offseason as well. So there's so many question marks. Not only did he let a lot of owners down in 2016, there's enough evidence that's out there right now as we look forward to 2017 that he might be doing the same thing next year. So I get it, and I'm totally with you.
I'm not trying to argue with you on this, but I'm just saying that, okay, let's say Watkins falls to like the 6th round in drafts on average because of all this turmoil, and I'm just saying, if you didn't own him in any drafts this year, you'd be like, dude, Sammy Watt's falling in the 6th round. But if you own him, it's like, oh, screw him. He screwed me in all these leagues last year. That happened.
Like, okay, so I don't think I drafted him anywhere this year, but I did pick him up when he got IR'd, and he actually had a couple of good weeks after he came back. Well, not good weeks, but he had a couple of passable. Listen, there were good weeks on my teams. Put it that way. But the thing is, like, I don't think that. I mean, at some point, even if you owned him last year, you got to be like, oh God, I mean, Sammy Watkins is out there in the 6th round or whatever. You know what I mean? And you have to look at seeing like, okay, maybe the reward is outweighing the risk at this point, outweighing the bad.
Or whatever, whatever round, whatever there is.
Yeah, we're talking in arbitrary terms here. Let's talk about
one team left.
Let's talk about in arbitrary terms. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's that thing's going to sell out after we go off the air. Alex is probably like conspiring against me right now, calling up all his buddies like, listen, I need you to go. Did it sell out?
It sold out.
Oh, son of a gun. All right, well, the playoff FFPC challenge is sold out.
Alex, get those 20-team leagues going.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
$5.
Can people go ahead and get on there right away, or is there going to be a delay? Do you have to?
This is the FFPC. We do all this stuff manually, dude.
You figure out the FFPC aspect. I'm going to read a couple of emails to David and Nelson here and get their input. Dave, the first one I'm going to pitch to you. This is from John in Wakefield, Mass. Congrats, David and Nelson. How do you break down the Jags offense next year? Are Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns going to be good bounce-back candidates? Thanks for the email, John. And Dave, I'll actually piggyback on this guy's email and say not only Robinson and Hurns, what are we doing with Marquise Lee next year, or is Blake Bortles too much of a conundrum to look at these 3 receivers?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, Boggy. Allen Robinson could be a value if he falls far enough. I'd take another chance on him, sure. But Marquise Lee would be the guy I'd be looking at over Allen Hurns. I don't see Hurns ever getting a large role again in that offense. I think it'll be Robinson and Marquise Lee. And I actually think Marquise Lee is more talented than Robinson, so I would be looking at Marquise Lee as having potential upside for a breakout year.
And the talent was never a question with Lee. The knock on him was always staying on the field, and he clearly did that in the second half of the 2016 season. So
what did he do with Hurns' contract? He signed that $40 million.
Yeah, it was a big extension. And now he's their number 3 receiver.
They fired the GM yet?
No, I don't believe so. They fired their head coach. We'll see what they do with head coach with their next head coach.
Rule number 1 in the NFL: don't hire a guy named Gus to run your team.
Rule number 2: don't talk about Gus. Nelson, let's throw this one to you. This is from Daryl in Greensboro, North Carolina. He writes, assuming that the Chiefs don't do anything too crazy in the offseason, how high will Tyreek Hill climb up the wide receiver ranks and draft boards in 2017? Way to go, champs. Daryl in Greensboro, North Carolina.
And I'm going to ask a personal follow-up question.
Selfish is the word you're looking for. Selfish.
Sorry, I'm stupid. And what's he worth in Dynasty draft? Dynasty rookie pick?
Yeah, Nelson, your take on Tyreek Hill's value going forward?
I still think he's going to be, although he helped us, I'm not as biased as Dave is, so I try to be more of a voice of reason. He's still a boom or bust guy. It's still an offense that Andy Reid he likes to spread the ball. He's a home run hitter. So there's definitely value there. He's capable of big weeks, but I don't know if I'd be looking to take him too early, knowing that I don't know if I'm going to get consistency out of him, because then all of a sudden you could see, Kelsey emerges, Macklin's back healthy, Jamal Charles comes back, and Tyreek Hill's, getting his, 2 or 3 touches a game or something.
So then in dynasty leagues, what do you think if you were trying to trade for him or trade him away, what would you take and or pay? Which technically in economic terms should be identical.
Well, I mean, in dynasty, what are we talking here as far as I'm not in too many trading leagues and things like that, so you'd have to give me give me like an example of like what rounds, what pick would I be getting?
Like a dynasty rookie pick, like let's say you could say like the 101, which you wouldn't say, which would be like a Dalvin Cook type player.
Or Dalvin Cook, baby.
Shut up, Balky.
I'm glad you said it over Fournette.
Or Fournette, which you wouldn't do that, of course. Or you could say like a 106, or you could say a 112, or like a late second round player. And if you don't play dynasty, maybe you don't really have a great, you're not really that familiar.
Well,
with
who's an example who went in the second half of first rounds last year? That would be. I mean, Jordan Howard. Where was he going?
Yeah, like Jordan Howard or like Devonta Booker was going.
Devontae Booker, yep, that'd be another one.
Like Funchess 2 years ago was
Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry, like non-FFPC leagues was going around there. So those are kind of examples of late first round picks.
Okay. It would probably be somewhere like in the early second round for Hill, and that I'd be looking for. And then as far as the number one pick, it would be Mike Williams, by the way.
Yeah. Boy, he is going to be a good one. I said that before he got that.
There's already been too many Mike Williams in the NFL that have sucked. I'm not drafting another Mike Williams.
I remember, because he was
I'm not drafting his name.
He was a big-time player at Clemson, and I was actually worried about him playing Florida State because he was so talented. And then he had a really bad neck injury he suffered early on last season, and he was out for the season. And then he came back this past year and put up a great year, and you're right, Nelson. I could see him go. I mean, because he is a wide receiver too, he could be going as high as the 101. Dave, we've been incredibly. These guys have been incredibly gracious with their time. We do need to move on and let them go back to their lives. You have your favorite question you'd like to ask.
Let me just say, I like Tyreek Hill probably a little more than Nelson, and he ran a 9.98 100-yard dash, wind assisted in 2013. You cannot coach speed, boy.
Wind assisted, come on. I could run that. Just put the wind at my back, and I fly, man.
You can run a 9.98 60. Guys, please give us a player who's going to be drafted in the first couple of rounds next year, that you have no part of, and then a guy that you think will be undervalued in high-stakes drafts in 2017. We're already making you do a little work for us here. Balky and I are lazy. We always just write this down and use it for our own cheat sheets.
Yep. This is how we formulate rankings every year.
Mr. Champ, David Hubbard, you can go first with your two guys, and then Mr. Champ, Nelson Sousa. Then your duo, please.
My player's kind of obvious. I'm going to stay away from Todd Gurley again. I don't have any confidence that the Rams are good. It's going to take a couple more years. It's a shame because Gurley's a talented guy, but I don't think the offense is going to be set up next year. They're not going to put it – they'd have to get a lot of players that can play on the offensive side of the ball to help him for him ever to be productive. So Gurley will be my avoid player again next year. And then I'm going to go back to the well, even though I'm biased type guy that fires people. I'm going to go back to the well on Brashad Perryman with Steve Smith retiring. I've said all along, I think Perryman suits Flacco's style of play really well. So it's a matter, maybe in his third year, the light finally clicks and you get to see the true talent that he has. So that's my two guys.
But he's bald.
Well, listen, there's nothing wrong with bald people.
There's nothing wrong with bald people.
You're a baldist.
I don't mind bald people, just not when they're 22.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
What about if they're balding at 37? Is that a problem?
No, those are great people.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Nelson, your bust and your sleeper.
My bust for next year, I think, is going to be Jordan Howard. So he's going to be a guy I'm going to be avoiding. I just think that he's not as talented as maybe some people think. And I think, with Langford and Carey there, I still think that they'll get enough work there. And he's not a very good pass catcher, so I think he's going to be a little overvalued next year. And then you're asking for an undervalued guy?
Yes, sir.
My undervalued guy for next year, I've got like two guys. One is Martavis Bryant. I think I'm going to be on him and want to take him on almost every draft. And then Amir Abdullah is the other guy.
Ooh, all right. Haven't heard his name lately.
Is he still on your Carrington Dynasty team, Dave?
Yep, he's just lurking around there, Balky.
And you know who's on my Carrington Dynasty team? Martavis Bryant.
Oh, all right.
So Nelson, you made us very happy tonight. We're going to take that as facts. Based on these projections, based on what you guys did this year. Congratulations to both of you on winning the FFPC main event. What an accomplishment. I know you guys were very excited to get that title under your belts. Simply amazing year for you guys in all of your leagues, and I congratulate you on all of that as well. Thanks so much for joining the show. Best of luck to you in 2017, and who knows, maybe we'll end up talking to you again on this show down the road. Thanks a lot for coming on, guys.
Thanks, Balky.
Thanks, guys. See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas, indeed. David Hubbard, Nelson Sousa, two of my favorite people in that we see in Vegas every year that play in the FFPC.
Can I ask you a question?
All three big paybacks, by the way. They won one, took third in the other two.
That's impressive.
That is impressive.
So they won the whole thing. You were rooting for them, right?
Well, I think that much is obvious. I don't see how they would have won without the Balkman bump.
Thanks, guys. I'm rooting for you.
Alex.
Just like the other 12 people we had on in the previous week.
Alex Kajanowski, the prognosticator, says in our little group text here, he's already working on adding those 20-man or 20-team playoff leagues. Chris Lambert says that
means he emailed our tech guys.
Yeah. Chris Lambert has said it in the group text. She's already getting emails, people asking. She's like, we're never sold out. Roll out those 20-teamers. So very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff to talk to Nelson and David tonight. Always a treat
they were
to
great.
Pick their brains. A lot of good analysis. And we're gonna listen. I don't want to get into the 2017 so much right now because we're going to get into draft strategy after we get past Dynasty. But there is a lot to talk about. What Zero RB did this year. What All RB did this year. Very exciting.
By the way,
yes,
I agree with the Jordan Howard contention. He's on my sell him before they draft a running back. You know, I have that list. He's on that list. Where
go ahead. Finish your thought on Howard.
It's a super deep running back class. So Howard was not a pedigree back.
Mm-hmm.
Langford also not a pedigree back. Sucks. If the Bears have a shot at a top running back in the first 3 rounds, they have a legitimate chance of taking that person. And then Howard and Langford, they're all crap.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
I don't necessarily think you have to, but. If I own Jordan Howard, I do not. I would be dealing him.
I have 5 on the Bears not taking a running back in the first 3 rounds.
You know what? I'll do that. Why not? This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun draft. I was having a fun draft. By the way, are we officially lying to our wives and going to Chicago and telling them that the draft is in Chicago?
No, we are not. We're lying to our wives and telling them the draft is in Chicago, and then we are going up to Chip-In Island in Michigan, and that's where we're watching the draft. Yeah, exactly.
How do we tell the truth to our wives and just tell them we're going to Chicago anyway?
I think that's actually what's going to happen.
Say we want to go away to Chicago.
Yeah.
To the Art Institute.
So the other thing I was going to bring up, I know we got to get, Rob is motioning, we got to get to a break, but the other thing I want to bring up, guess what rookie led the NFC in rushing this year?
NFC in rushing, what rookie?
Yep.
Jordan Howard?
No, he was number 2 behind Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh.
So the top 2 running backs in the NFC this year were both rookies. Jordan Howard, over 1,300 or more than 1,300 rushing yards this past year.
Wow. Jordan Howard had more than 1,300
yes.
rushing? Wow.
Yep, I know. It shocked me too. Let me ask you this.
You know what? That might have been a dumb bet.
Most receiving yardage in the AFC last year. Most receiving yardage in the AFC.
Last year?
2016.
Okay.
This past year.
Geez, I'm trying to think who actually did well.
Oh, you have Antonio Brown. You have
other people.
Other people in that. I'll give you a hint. He's in the AFC South, and he's not DeAndre Hopkins.
T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y. Hilton.
Really?
Yeah, led the AFC in receiving yards. He might have led the NFL in receiving yards. Now that I think of it.
RotoViz has a good article about wide receiver production being primary wide receiver production being down this year.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know why.
Maybe that's why the running backs crushed it in drafts because. Oh, I'll tell you who else.
Also, running backs got injured at a rate that was way outside of the 95% confidence interval they got injured at a lesser rate than 95% of the time they've been predicted to get injured.
Okay, but that's all fine. Fantasy Douche had a great tweet this week, and I retweeted it. You can check my timeline for it. He said, "Congrats to all the owners of," and he listed off Gurley and AP and Charles and Lacey and all these guys that
suck.
Yeah, and who are laughing all the way to the bank that they ignored zero RB. You know,
that's funny. But
but hold on, I'm not done. So he had that tweet, and then Ben Gretsch, who writes for RotoViz, you can follow him at Yards Per Gretsch.
He wrote the article I was talking about.
Okay, the RotoViz one. Okay, so perfect. So and he made the surmission of it was, I will be applying zero RB next year as well.
Right.
Because people are going to assume that this is the new normal. He doesn't believe that it is the new normal. The new normal on this show, we got to get to a break.
Surmission's a word?
Surmission? That's not how it's spelled.
I'm on Urban Dictionary.
You look it up at a reputable website, not like the trash that's at Urban Dictionary. Actually, look up Eric Balkman on Urban Dictionary. See if that's on there. High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour with Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak rolls on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network right after this. The HSFF Hour is here. The NFL playoffs are here. Dave Gerzak, Eric Balkman here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Now, you just looked this up on Urban Dictionary. You looked up me?
Yeah, and it's funny in the Urban Dictionary, if there's no word, it says you can define it. So I could make up
don't do that.
Total jerk. Whatever.
Actually, you know what? Do that. Let's get that going. Everybody, obviously, who listens to this show who bought teams while we were on the air thinks I'm a total jerk.
They're going to reject inside jokes and definitions naming non-celebrities. That's obviously you, Balky.
I am clearly not a non-celebrity. You just had the main event winners talking about, the 250K was nice, but we really wanted to talk to Eric Balkman on his show.
That's true. That's weird that they said that.
Let's get into your emails and tweets.
If you've got a question for Eric, Dave, or tonight's guest, send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
Yes?
I typed in submission, and on Google's really good at ranking stuff. I don't know if you've noticed. They have this algorithm. I don't see it on dictionary.com.
Boy, I thought submission was a word. I really thought it was. But not that spell. How did you spell it?
I spelled it with one S, and then they auto-corrected to two S's.
Which is the Urban Dictionary listing.
I mean, it's
maybe I meant circumcision. That could have been. I don't know.
That's a word.
I also forgot to mention David Hubbard is on Twitter at 208-858-740. Nelson Sousa on Twitter at _franchise12. Check that out. We really got to fly through these emails because you and I are going to give our FFPC playoff challenge teams.
I thought I had learned something tonight.
Yeah, well, I seen that you didn't. Chris in Birmingham, Illinois, going straight to the horse's mouth. Who will be the starting running back in Green Bay next year? Your thoughts?
Some guy they draft.
Some guy who's not on the roster.
Yeah. I don't think man, do you think they're going to roll with Ty Montgomery?
Here's what I think.
Tell me, Balky.
I think I brought this up on the show before.
Was I on the show that year?
I think you were. I'm still of the belief that Eddie Lacy does not get what he is expecting in free agency. I think the Packers bring him back on a
weight loss contract,
much as how they did with James Jones and B.J. Raji on these 1-year, 2-year deals for under market value and like a prove it type year.
Yep.
I think they bring him back. I don't think he is the 3-down guy, the bell cow anymore. I think that Ty Montgomery has worked his way into this offense and will be demanding touches next year. And I think they really split it. If they do draft somebody, that guy becomes the number 3 and maybe the guy in waiting to take over for Lacy. But I think Kristen Michael has a decent shot at being the number 3 back on this team.
It's so tough for me to project because Ted Thompson never, ever drafts running backs early. Never. But he always drafts value.
He took Lacy in the second.
Okay, so he does sometimes, so I guess I'm wrong. But
Did Jonathan Frank? Oh, no, Jonathan Franklin was a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, it was the same draft.
That was the same draft, yeah.
So he was trying to solve the running back. But the thing is, he had never done it before, and then 1 year he's like, okay, I'm going to finally fix this, and he does. It kind of works out, sometimes kind of not. And then But he always wants to take value. So I don't think he takes a running back in the first round, but I think there's a chance if these highly touted running backs fall to the second, that he goes with one.
I would be shocked if he took a running back in the first round. I think he's going to end up taking a pass rusher or something like that.
I think a lineman, offensive or defensive lineman or something like that.
They love those big people in the first round.
Sometimes a corner.
First round, yeah. Hey, Balky and Dave, the Lions coaches said that they would give Zach Zenner a chance to be the featured back going forward with his production. Does that continue into 2017 with Abdullah due to come back? TIA, Tim in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for the email, Tim. Well, clearly...
I missed the first part.
Clearly, sometimes I don't even think you listen when I read the emails, and you just listen for the name and you talk about that name. You know what I mean?
I listen.
So
I'm not that well, though.
If you heard what Nelson Sousa said before the break, he likes Amir Abdullah next year as a bounce-back candidate. So he would not be of the belief that Zach Zenner is going to be the featured back next year. But I think he's carved out a role. I think that between Riddick, Abdullah, and Zenner, those are your three Lions that you're looking at next year. I would clearly want to own Riddick number one because of the pass-catching ability. I think I'd rather have Abdullah than Zenner, and I'm kind of bearish on Zach Zenner next year.
I think I'm bearish on the overall Lions running game just because there are three people to talk about. And Zenner has looked really good. If he turns into the Jeremy Hill type role, that causes problems.
Yeah.
And he's definitely more of a goal line back than Riddick or Abdullah. Abdullah is supposedly the explosive guy who never really explodes.
Yeah.
And then Riddick
just explodes into the training room every year.
And averages 2.7 yards a carry. And Riddick has proven to be talented. I don't know. I guess we'll see, but I'm not that excited about drafting any of those guys. It seems to me like they're all going to get drafted a little bit higher than I would take them.
That definitely could be the case next year. Dear Wes and Randy, did we already see Malcolm Mitchell peak in this Pats offense? Gronk will be back next year, and Mitchell doesn't really fit with Tom Brady loving to throw the ball near the line of scrimmage to Gronk, Edelman, Bennett, White, Lewis, and Amendola.
No.
I just am wondering what I do with him in Dynasty. That's Paul in Hermosa. Hermosa, South Dakota.
Hermosa. Right by the border of South Dakota.
That was from Hermosa Zone.
Was that
Paul?
Hermosa Beach?
It was just Hermosa, South Dakota. It wasn't Hermosa Beach.
They have a city. It's like Sioux Falls Beach.
Yeah.
South Dakota.
Yeah. Brandon Beach, Kansas.
What's the view like out of your house? Oh, it's solid.
Yeah.
There's a lake.
And a lot of dust. Malcolm Mitchell, Dynasty. What are you doing with them? Holding him?
Yeah, I would hold him. I'd maybe acquire him if I got him for cheap enough.
I'm the opposite. I think I'd be looking to flip him. Yeah. I'm not excited for him for going for it. You think about what this offense is, and Tom Brady throws. He's not a big downfield thrower. He likes to throw the ball within 10 yards on the line of scrimmage. That's how they move the chains. That's how they score points. And I feel like Malcolm Mitchell really is more of a rich man's Aaron Dobson at this point, rather than who, by the way, just got signed by the Cardinals. I don't know if you saw that.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because Michael Floyd just got signed by the Patriots, and they could the Patriots could bring Floyd back next year too.
Those points make sense, but you're assuming that Malcolm Mitchell can't learn the entire route tree. He can't run short routes.
I don't believe
he's a rookie.
I don't believe he doesn't know the entire route tree now. I just think they have guys who are
Brady doesn't like throwing outside really.
I mean, not deep, and that's what Malcolm Mitchell provides.
He does that.
Well, Edelman does it better. Gronk does it better. I mean, these are all guys that do what how the Patriots succeed.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree. I think they're both better than Mitchell.
Right.
I
don't think that's my argument.
But Mitchell's a rookie. I mean, so it's like, he's not that expensive. I mean, like people aren't saying like, oh, I want the 104 for Mitchell. I mean, obviously you're selling him for that.
Right.
But I mean, if they're asking for like a 206, 207, it's like, maybe
I'd flip him for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would take that?
I would take the draft pick over Mitchell.
You take the draft. I would probably
You'd rather
take
have
Mitchell over the draft.
Okay.
That's about where what do you think? That's about his range, 205?
I guess. I mean,
all right.
I mean,
I'm sorry to do this.
Late second round pick, I'd probably still do it, but you know me in dynasty trades.
Those picks are garbage.
I keep reading that Washington. Well, that's what I think about Malcolm Mitchell.
Evidently, you do.
Sam in Los Angeles, California. I keep reading that Washington is going to let both Djax and Garcon go. Is now the time to buy on Crowder and Doxson? Happy New Year. It is Sam in L.A. I'm assuming he's talking about for dynasty here, and yeah, I know Nelson Sousa really didn't have a lot of great things to say about Josh Doxson, but yeah, I think for a guy who could be the number one wide receiver in Washington next year with no Jackson, no Garcon,
And we saw what Kirk Cousins is able to do. Washington had one of the better offenses in the NFL, so I think this would be a great time to acquire Doxson, and this is also a good time to acquire Jamison Crowder, who could be the number 2 receiver there next year, or maybe the number 1.
I agree, actually. I like Crowder. I mean, Crowder's really showing his talents, and when you get rid of those other 2 guys, you get rid of Deshaun Jackson, you get rid of stupid Pierre Garcon.
You know, both of those guys had over 1,000 yards receiving this year.
Garcon?
Yeah.
Wow. See, remember we were talking about Garcon as like a 12th round pick? I'm like, oh, I would take a shot.
Yeah.
But you would never be excited.
He only had 3 touchdowns.
You would never be excited about starting him. You know what I mean? You never would be, and you'd be like, I guess I'll put him in there if you have to.
I picked him up in it wasn't the last week in Carrington, but it was a few weeks to go in the season, just so I could have him on my roster to see where he lands if Washington does let him go. But, because he's a target monster wherever he's gone. He gets a ton of targets.
He does get targets, for sure.
So
I drafted Will Fuller in a lot of leagues, and actually I got an offer for Josh Doxson for Fuller when Fuller was breaking out, and I took it. So I was like, I'll go.
So you got Doxson.
I have Doxson on one dynasty team, and right now I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I would too.
So, I feel like, he's got a decent shot for sure.
Yeah.
He was kind of an old guy coming out, so that's always a scary thing, but I think he'll be good. I mean, you have to have someone getting targets. Jordan Reed will get hurt next year. Don't worry about that. That'll happen.
Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys talked all off-season, this past off-season, about when you're drafting a receiver, you're sort of drafting the quarterback with him, whether you believe that or not.
No, they
go hand in hand. Josh Doxson, going to have a guy in Kirk Cousins who's going to be making a lot of money next year throwing to him.
Yeah, that was
Will Fuller.
Ugh.
God knows who's going to be thrown to him next year. All I know is that it's not a great option between Osweiler or Savage or a rookie.
They should just tear the Band-Aid off on Osweiler and cut him. I don't even care what
That's
the cap
a lot of dead money.
That's dead meat, man. Get rid of him. Dump him.
Final email tonight, Dave.
If you're dating a girl who treats you poorly, get rid of her. It's like,
what if she takes $26 million from you too when you get rid of her? How does that play into it?
Because it depends on how much you start with.
For me, I'd kind of put up with her BS for a little bit longer.
If I was worth $52 million, I'd be all right with it. Not actually, you know what? I wouldn't be all right with it, but
you'd just bite that bullet.
Maybe depends on how bad she's treating me.
Dan in Cimarron, New Mexico. What are your lineups for the FFPC Playoff Challenge? I didn't want to do this because it is a pain, according to Rob, to figure out when we put 5 on these FFPC playoff challenges to figure it out every single week.
Rob doesn't like the math, even though his ACT score was supposedly so good, although he never showed me documentation.
Just grinding his gears. Let's do it. So I had an appointment at the doctor's office today, and the first portion of it was 40 minutes of just laying there, and it was in the dark, and I didn't want to fall asleep while they were.
I didn't know they had colonoscopies.
It was not a colonoscopy, or colonoscopy. What is it? Colonoscopy.
Colin, what the hell am I?
Colonoscopy. I got rid of my Kaepernick that was growing out of my leg. Just got rid of it today. They went in there and they got rid of it.
Watching him play.
I'm able to stand for the national anthem now, Dave. That I got rid of that off my leg. It's so exciting. I went home and played Whitney Houston's version on repeat just to get it out of my system.
All right, that's all. That was very funny.
My point was that I was just laying there and I didn't want to fall asleep, so I was trying to keep my mind sharp. So I'm like, I'm just going to put a playoff challenge team together. And I put one together, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll roll with this. I'll bring it up on the show tonight. And then we got an email from Dan in Cimarron, New Mexico.
Amazing how that works.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to reveal your whole roster and then let's just kind of do it by position, and we'll do it together.
Yeah, tit for tat.
Tit for tat. Your tit is up first. Quarterback. Who do you have as your quarterback?
My team name is called Captain Obvious.
Great.
Brady.
Okay, that's who I had as well. I was on. I'm trying not to bring when I do other shows because it sounds tacky. But I'll just tell you, I was talking.
Too late. Slow down.
Jeff Mann's on the Fantasy Alarm yesterday.
You haven't name dropped him for a while.
I don't go on there as much anymore.
These guys, what the hell?
Well, he focuses on daily a lot too. But we were talking about the Patriots and what Patriots should select, and some guy actually tweeted us afterwards. I think it was Brad Kirkland, if I'm remembering correctly, at B Kirkland on Twitter, I think is what it was.
Sure.
He said, well, what about, is there somebody else I could take? What about Blunt? And I said, Blunt had 18 rushing touchdowns this year. The game scripts for New England really dictate that they should be having these games well in hand all the way up to the Super Bowl. I think that a team with Blunt would be interesting.
It would.
That said, I'm still going with Brady.
I actually totally agree. And it would if Blunt had a pretty solid game and Brady had his typical game of like 20, 25 points or whatever, and then they lost in an unexpected game, your team could actually be really good. I mean, because you might outscore. Anyway.
Running backs.
Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott.
Those were mine, and I also had Devontae Freeman as well.
Interesting.
So I chose Devontae Freeman as my Falcon.
I think that I think the difference between Julio and Freeman, one way or the other, is going to be really going to be. It's going to like about half the teams are going to be impacted. Maybe not, because a few people will take Matt Ryan. But I mean, really, it's going to be between Julio and Freeman. I took Julio on that team.
Skip receiver, because I can't remember who my second receiver was right now. Go to tight end, because I know who I picked there.
Kelsey, of course.
I took Travis Kelce and Jimmy Graham.
Oh, nice.
So I went with Graham over Baldwin. I know there's some Russell Wilson love out there as well, but just with the FFPC scoring, I'm going to roll the dice with the dual tight ends there.
I did take Baldwin.
Okay.
So we're different there.
Janikowski and the Texans, is that who you had?
That is who I have.
Okay, so that's who I have too.
So we were missing one wide receiver.
So go ahead with your
Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh, that's who my second one was. Yeah.
Dude, this is the thing, is our teams are so similar.
Okay, but you had to pick another because that's not your. So my receivers are Jordy Nelson and Odell Beckham.
We didn't mention Jordy. I also have Jordy.
So we have the exact same teams except for
Julio versus Freeman.
Yeah, and Graham versus Baldwin.
Yep.
It was.
Then you know what?
All right, perfect. So then
our team should be called Captain Obvious 1 and Captain Obvious 2. These are like the two most obvious dumb teams.
And you know
if
what?
If you're playing the FFPC Challenge, don't pick these teams. These are terrible teams.
Don't pick these teams
take a Big Ben team that takes you all the way to the championship.
Yep, that
Take
could
a
work.
Russell Wilson team. Take a Matt Ryan team that actually has a legitimate shot.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill team.
A Tyreek Hill team would be very interesting. I bet he will be under-owned. He'll be owned by some Sharky guys.
Yeah.
That's a really good pick.
Can I give you a real shark pick?
Sure.
Take a Brock Osweiler team. You never know, people. You never know.
Connor Cook.
Great advice on the show tonight. That is going to do it. I want to thank David Hubbard, Nelson Sousa, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course you for listening tonight. A very happy birthday to longtime FFPC Dynasty player Mark Perino, Dave. It's his birthday today. Hopefully he celebrated by listening to the main event champs come on tonight. And he probably didn't, but that's okay. Play the Playoff Challenge. All those 20-man roster leagues, or not 20-man rosters, but the 20-team leagues will be live on myffpc.com if they're not already. Pick up a Dynasty Orphan. Next week, 2016 Football Guys Players Champion Mike Kuzma coming on. That is going to be an exciting interview. A guy who came out of nowhere, put up a 236 score to win the whole thing in Week 16. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend. Good luck in the Playoff Challenge, and your Wild Card Weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go 'cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight, and everything.
Alex texted in the group text, Dave. He said, we're all set to go with the 20-team leagues, and he didn't email the tech guys.
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
Fine, whatever.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Good luck in the Playoff Challenge.
Delivery from Staples.
Staples guy. More storage bins? Great.
Yeah, and you saved a ton with Staples' 110% price match guarantee.
I am resolved to getting organized this year. Now everything is boxed up and put away.
Whoa. What was that?
Oh, no. I boxed up Paul again.
Resolve to get organized and get 20% off select office supplies. Staples. Make more happen.
Applies to regular priced items only. Excludes ink and toner. Other restrictions may apply. Ends 1/14/17. Staples will match prices for items from retailers with online and retail stores and refund 10% of difference. See storestaples.com for details.